of the common questions that we get asked is how are our muntins applied to the door, applied to the glass, as well as if certain things happen in the field from exposure, from movement of wood, how do you correct those? And it's actually a lot easier to do than it is commonly perceived. One of the things we're going to show today is 4 of the common things that can be, with a minor adjustment, be made to make the product look perfect in the field. One of the first things that gets commented on is that a muntin is sticking above the face of the stile and rail. What you're showing here is it's not something you would really see. It may be sticking up a 1/16 of an inch. And that could be caused by, a lot of times we see is that could be caused by the door hasn't been painted yet. So you're getting some expansion. And the easiest way to correct that is to take an orbital sander and sand that muntin to be the same flat as the stile and rail. And as I had mentioned, that usually happens because the door hasn't been finished. So if the door hasn't been finished, it's a relatively quick, easy process to be done by the painter right before the door is finished painted. Now you can see everything's lined up perfect, and the door can be touched up and painted. Blow the sawdust off and apply, we're going to show here, a coat of primer, but after the primer would obviously be the paint. The second thing that comes up sometimes is you will get a muntin that could be loose. You can push it down, it fits, but it's loose. It's not adhering perfectly to the glass and secure. Keep in mind that you have wood in your muntin and wood in your sticking. Is to simply put a brad pin nail in to secure that muntin against the glass. First, adhere your muntin to the glass securely, make sure it's set, and then put a pin through the wood of the muntin into the wood of the coat. Once that's complete, same process, touch up, fill. The third thing that happens is if there's an issue with the horizontal muntin. And when I say horizontal, I mean horizontal, this door is laying flat, so the horizontal going across the width of the door. The horizontal muntin actually sits on top of the vertical muntin. So if you want to take off the horizontal muntin, that can be taken off without affecting the vertical muntin. In order to do that, take a window cleaner like a Windex, there's other things that can be used, and spray that against where the 2-sided tape meets the glass. We would recommend to do that to both sides and leave it sit for probably 5 to 10 minutes. Once that's done, the 2-sided tape will loosen up and be easier to be removed. At that point, we'd recommend taking a putty knife, that this one's all set up for it, to basically go underneath the 2-sided tape and lift the muntin off. To do that, go from every couple inches as you work your way down the muntin to pop the muntin off. Once complete, you'll have a muntin that you can see where the notching, how the horizontal muntin sits and overlaps the vertical, and the 2-sided tape on the bottom. At this point, you can do any fixing to the muntin. If it needs to be a new muntin, we could provide a new muntin to be installed into this exact opening. The fourth thing that comes up is on the vertical muntins. One of the things to mention when it comes to our product is a lot of times the product's not finished. And if you look at a wood muntin where it's not finished, I mean, you're looking at this product here, it's primed. However, priming is not a finish. It's not meant to seal. It's only to allow paint to be applied and adhere to it. So you look at these muntins, they're very small pieces of wood, and you're going for 3, 4, 5, 6 feet in length and want to keep them perfectly straight. And what happens is possibly you could have where a mutton will, based on potentially not being finished, will move because it's a natural tendency of the wood, and will start to maybe not be straight, adhering to the glass, and be crooked. And what we're going to show is how to fix that vertical mutton. To do that, lift the mutton up. We would apply the glass cleaner to probably help it come up quicker. And it is worth noting that the same thing that people use to clean their glass is also used to help remove the tape from the glass. So just a quick comment is when the customers clean the glass, they shouldn't be putting pools of window cleaner on where the tape is. So once the mutton's getting ready to be lifted off, take a putty knife and lift the mutton. It will need to be broke, and it'll need to be broke right where that joint is. To do that, apply your hand to the horizontal to push down and push the vertical mutton to break the mutton. There's not a lot of meat to that mutton, so it'll break relatively easily. At this point, we can do one of two things. One, we can take the tape off, modify the mutton, and reinstall the mutton. Or two, a new mutton could be made. In general, 9 times out of 10, breaking the mutton and reapplying it will solve the situation. To do that, obviously you need to clean all the residue of the two-sided tape from the glass, as well as take the tape off the back side of the mutton. To take the tape off the glass, use a very sharp razor blade so you're not going to scratch the glass. And as you can see with the cleaner on, it comes off relatively easy. Wipe the cleaner off, making sure your glass is nice, clean, and dry. To remove the tape, once again, the glass cleaner being applied to it will help make it come off easier. Once this tape is removed, you'll see that there's some minor wood edges where you broke it. We recommend setting the mutton down and taking a utility knife and trimming those edges. To do that, lay the mutton flat and follow the curvature of the mutton and go straight down following the angles that it is machined at. No one will ever be able to see that because it'll all be hidden, but it'll allow it to adhere and be reapplied in the field. You may also need to carefully trim the excess where the mutton broke inside on the vertical mutton. We're showing this being done with a utility knife. It could be done with a small sharp chisel probably. Once that's done, again, there's going to be potentially the glass may need to be cleaned. At this point, we would want to reapply primer to the back side of the mutton, as well as the ends, since we've broken those ends and trimmed them. So we will prime the back as well as the ends. And we would recommend at this point to potentially put one coat of paint on the back side of the mutton and edge as well. At this point, any of the exposed wood should be painted or sealed to help reduce any risk of movement in the future. Once your paint has all dried, now the time to put the two-sided tape. The two-sided tape will be the same width as the mutton width. To apply that, line it up and put it on the mutton, starting at one edge and pushing down and following through the length of the mutton, making sure it stays straight as you do that. There will be a little extra on each end. Simply take a pair of scissors and trim. Once trimmed, we recommend doing a quick dry fit before you put the mutton in the opening. Once you've done a dry fit, simply grab the end and pull the edge of the two-sided, making sure you don't pull the tape up off the mutton. And the key is to not let that get dirty at all. So once you pull the tape off, set the muntin in place starting at one end, and don't push it down all the way exact, but get it close. Then take a T-square, once you have it close, and line that up with your unit, making sure that it'll be in the same plane and straight. Once you've got the muntin where you want it with straightness, push down by hand first, starting at one end, proceeding to the other end of the muntin. Then we recommend to have a roller to roll the muntin down, but if it's a small muntin, it can just be done by hand because you're getting a lot of pressure in a very small area. We recommend pushing down, maybe at certain points, even holding for a few seconds in place. Once we know the tape is set, the last thing to do is to do a check to see how tight the muntin is relating to the glass. It doesn't need to be so secure that you can't pull it, but it needs to be snug at all points from beginning to end of the muntin. We would also recommend to pin it where the wood meets the wood at the top, as well as where the muntin is. Once again, making sure you go wood to wood. As you can see, we basically took a muntin, broke it, reapplied it, retaped it. It looks complicated, but once you break out how it's done, it is actually a fairly easy process to do.